Wait, did I? Oh shit! I lost my money. I'm just gonna have to pull out the hammers, bro. Step down there. Shit. I can find, right? Just in case. Oh! 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 That damage, bruh! Get some bitch! Bow! That's how you take out a boss, fam. $1 million, so yes. I got a grace point there. Yeah, I did. That horse guy's weird, bro. He stays on to you all the time. How much time is gonna do this guy? Shit. Fine. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I'll try. Okay. What would I do? I do want to. I low-key want to do a blood build setup, yeah.
Bleed builds the wrong way. But don't worry, this time it's not actually your fault. The way hemorrhage works in Elden Ring has changed a lot in the last year. Yes, it's officially been 1 year already since Elden Ring released. I remember making the first ever video on the double seppuku build, but even that build literally doesn't work the same anymore. In fact, 90% of the videos on YouTube for Elden Ring builds are mostly out of date by now. I'm starting a new series creating up-to-date guides and showing what's changed, which makes this guide perfect for both returning players and new players alike. I'll also be covering the current best bleed builds and what's changed with them as well, because as always on my channel, I make the best builds for Elden Ring, because I can guarantee you this video is filled with a ton of stuff you never knew about. So be sure to drop a fat fucking like about growing your first beard site and usually advance what's changed with it. To put it very simply, since a lot of people overcomplicate it, enemy have 200 resistance, weapon have 45 buildup, 5 hit activate status. Wow! If you don't want to hear nerd shit explained in detail, then just skip ahead because that's good enough. But explaining the example in detail, the Samurai class starts with an Uchigatana which has a base bleed buildup of 45. You cannot increase how much damage the bleed does, but you can increase how fast you apply it. Margit is one of the first bosses you will fight, and he has a bleed resistance of 316. This means you would have to hit Margit 8 consecutive times minimum to activate the effects of bleed on him with an Uchigatana. The arcane stat does not increase bleed buildup for bleed weapons unless the weapons have arcane scaling on it. So 99 arcane does nothing for a regular Uchigatana's bleed buildup. But it does everything for something like the Rivers of Blood, both giving it more damage and increasing the bleed buildup because it has arcane scaling and the Uchi does not. However, status buildup rapidly decreases every second. Shown here is the perspective of how it looks on a player. This exact same concept applies to every enemy in the game, even though you can't see it. If you are too slow or take too long between attacks, it can take a lot more than 8 hits for Margit to bleed. All enemies have a hidden buildup bar for all status effects, which starts at 0. Every time you land a hit with a bleed weapon, it increases the bleed buildup bar by the number on the weapon. When the bar is filled, blood loss is triggered, but every enemy max value is different, so it varies. When successfully activated, the effects of bleed will deal damage based on 15% of the target's maximum HP. But not entirely true. On most bosses, the damage is not actually the same, as bleed deals only around 10% HP damage instead. I did a bit of math, and the HP was actually 10% damage on bosses like Margit and the dragon Agiel. So my best hypothesis is 15% only applies to enemies that don't have a name, and 10% to any bosses with a name or title. But there might be a few exceptions. There is also no limit to how many times an enemy can be bled, but each time it activates will take longer than the next until it reaches a cap. Okay, now I'll be showing not only the fastest but the most up-to-date and best ways to activate the bleed effect because it's changed a ton. For the sake of gathering consistent data, all testing is done around 80 arcane with minimum strength and dex for weapons. Also tested on Margit as our constant since his data is easiest to access. Okay, all this talk about numbers is getting pretty fucking boring, so let's start hitting stuff. Starting off with our first test, we have one of the most controversial weapons in all of Elden Ring. This item used to be extremely broken with the entire community at war complaining about it. Since then, it got nerfed pretty hard, so it's quiet now, but I still rate it a decent 6 out of 10. Rivers has less damage and less bleed buildup than it used to, and it's pretty inaccessible until far later in the game, at which point most late game bosses have high resistance or are straight up immune to bleed. As of patch 1.06, the Ash of War for Rivers of Blood, Corpse Piler, had both its damage and bleed buildup decreased when hitting an enemy with the ranged blood attack. But if you manage to hit the target with the physical part of the blade as well while using Corpse Piler, Compiler, the damage is still decreased, but not by as much. Either way, its bleed buildup was decreased across the board, which means you'll most likely kill a target before the bleed even activates. FromSoft did give it a small damage buff in patch 1.07, but it's still not as good as it used to be. Fact about the Corpse Piler, it only sucked, which is a result of for bleed right now, but due to its short range, it's a solid 8 out of 10. So let me explain because a lot has changed. As always, you get it very early in the starting area of Limgrave with a pretty low stat requirement, which is amazing. But some groundbreaking things have changed how Reduvia builds work. Previously, most people would power stance 2 Reduvias together, but stop doing this. After all the patches and updates, a single Reduvia can instantly deal over 316 points of bleed in one attack. The reason one Reduvia is now more efficient than 2 is thanks to patch 1.07. Here's why. 1.07 introduced the dual status buildup nerf, which means if you do wield 2 weapons with the same status effect, your buildup becomes decreased to be less effective than a singular weapon, which I'll expand on in a bit. But notice how it takes a ton of hits with the dual Reduvias to bleed Margit, but then here, it only takes a single use of the Ash of War to get bleed. Keep in mind, both times I had 80 Arcane and plus 10 Reduvias. Patch 1.07 also buffed the damage to the Reduvia's Ash of War. Plus, it made the dagger itself have a melee hitbox. Previously, only the range part did damage and bleed buildup. The range part does add way more bleed than the melee part, but now if you're really close, you can hit both parts from the dagger and the blood blade to get infinite bleed procs. But wait, there's more. In patch 1.0...
Oh, that's a low-key skill we're talking about. I don't know, man.
8, the speed and range of the single Reduvia now. Let's expand on the dual bleed setups and seppuku builds now. This setup used to be one of the most OP Ashes of War in the game, but it got nerfed pretty hard, and even then, it's still kind of useful, so I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10. Specifically, when you commit Sudoku, it used to give 84 extra buildup, which could stack on top of a weapon's innate bleed as well, like the Uchi Katana, for example. In patch 1.07, they nerfed it from 84 buildup to 30 bleed buildup, which is literally the same amount as a single blood grease, only that doesn't cost a quarter of your health bar, especially if you're using the double seppuku version, because the self-inflicted damage was increased as well. Double seppuku was also indirectly nerfed by the previous nerf that reduced the effectiveness of dual status weapons. Seppuku is now just a worse version of blood grease, but even still, it'll allow you to reach the highest possible bleed buildup on certain weapons. This is a result of being able to apply seppuku on top of weapons that already have extra blood scaling applied to them, while weapon greases like blood grease don't stack and can't be used. I still don't think it's worth the setup and HP cost since it's still obsolete compared to the Reduvia and other weapons like dual Godskin Peelers or dual Scavenger Swords that used to be meta. Those also got hit by the dual status nerfs that I mentioned earlier, but these dual status builds are still decent at best. But like I said, with seppuku, it just has a massive HP cost, especially for reduced effectiveness, and the setup time for 2 just makes it really not worth it. If you want to do a dual status build, you're better off just using Blood Greases or Blood Flame. So I'm combining both the regular Blood Blade and the Bloody Slash Ashes of War into this section because it'll be pretty quick but also very interesting. Number 1, never use Blood Blade. It's just a worse version of Reduvia in every way. It has less damage, less bleed buildup, and it costs your HP. The Ash of War Blood Blade is also a bit slower than the Reduvia in casting time. As you can see here, the Reduvia is actually a little bit faster, so yeah, 0 out of 10. But the Bloody Slash, on the other hand, is something that I think a lot of people sleep on because most people were using it for dex builds. The ranged bloody portion from the Bloody Slash, Reduvia, Blood Blade, Rivers of Blood all deal physical damage, not fire damage. Their physical damage scales with 2 things. First, the base physical damage scales off your weapon's level. Then second, any additional arcane points will increase that damage even further based on your arcane level, even if the weapon doesn't scale with arcane. It does not scale with dex or strength or anything else, but it can be buffed further with other spells and items like Golden Bow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and Blood Boil Aromatic. To get the most value out of this, use Bloody Slash with occult weapon scaling. Again, the damage does not scale with dex. The ranged blood attack damage scales with arcane, and the bleed hemorrhage buildup increases with arcane too.
Okay, what I've done with one. There's so you got that's the Uchi Katana. I only have one anyway. What if I done it with the Naka Kiba though? Thinking like one Nagakiba. Yo, how is this gonna? He's gonna do the skill with Arcane. I wanna. Yeah, I'm gonna do this then. So wait, where is it? I'm gonna rebirth. Which stat is one I don't need. I might. Intelligence 60, faith 60, dexterity 70. I need that 80 strength. Endurance 70, mind 60. 60. I might. Wait, so 60, 50. I'm thinking. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna do it like that then. Cause bro, if I put that and it's gonna scale with Arcane, oh, my bleed will do tremendously good. Although that was my stat before. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, that's blessed. I made it 80. I might as well just. Perfect, yeah. I do want Arcane. Faith, Intelligence, Arcane. Okay, yeah, that should be blessed. Yeah, no. Instead of Seppuku, put on Bloody Slash. Yeah.
Credulity suited my purposes, so I put her to work. Do not hesitate to employ her. Should her services benefit you, despite her looks, she is more than capable in the piece of battle.
Thank goodness. I'm still looking. It's not easy, but you're telling me don't believe. If I do, I suppose I should try. I'll ask Master certainly. If I know he's trapped, I can tell.
Yeah, just go there.
Well, different no matter, it's all the same. Lay out your arms then.
Let's see. Let's see what happens now. Should be. Huh?
I suppose I'll ask Ma.
Why hasn't she gone yet?
Well, I took you for no matter, it's all out your arms. The girl. Are you a good sir? I refuse to be held down. Malcolm might be the besides. Well, I want smithing. Despite my differences, the weapons get stronger all the same. Even time. Technique never fails. Besides, it helps me forget.
Now I need to go on full on. This.
Welcome to I teach and explore so that one can surely...
I didn't even talk it to anybody.
You do most time you are well. May the golden...
If I do, I suppose I'll ask Ma.
Okay, well. Shoot. Now, I want to see if I'm trying it out. So if it's a con, it's just what? It's just M, isn't it? Oh no, it's still the same. Yeah. Having two shouldn't matter. looks like he was big. Okay. What seems no, it's decent, but it's not amazing. Oh, extra. No. Maybe it is better than seppuku. Okay, at least both of them are different. I'll equip that one and see. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me see.
I have long observed the lands between this world is in dire need of repair and help. Indiscriminate. Are you prepared to commit a cardinal sin?
Yeah.
Very well. Let my hand rest upon you for but a moment.
Brother, I'm making changes in my life for the better. And watch by the end of 2020, 2023, when you actually see me the way you were supposed to see me, you're gonna be like, wow. And you know what? You'll be happy. You'll really understand, like, drugs is a big problem in the world.
O Erd tree, you shall burn. Burn for the sake of the new Lord. Thank you for guiding me here. One who walks alongside fate shall one day meet the road of destined death. Goodbye.
ده دي دمي لقدها. No, you won't see me.